Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Financial Consolidation and Advanced Financial Reporting. My name is Nick Mears, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Mikola Software. We know your time is valuable, so we appreciate you sharing some of it with us today. Now, with that said, I'd like to introduce our presenters in today's webinars. First up is Vicky Basile, Alliance Manager at Macola. Vicky is a certified public accountant and professional project manager and has worked for one of the largest Macola customers for 10 years. She was responsible for IT and ERP management and implementation of projects before joining Macola in November of 2014. Vicky is also responsible for managing the relationship between Macola and Macola's partners like LucaNet. Next up is Robert Lawson, Managing Director at LucaNet. Robert is a founding member of LucaNet North America, has been working with the LucaNet family since 2015. With nearly 10 years of prior financial experience between two Fortune 50 companies, Robert provides unique insight into the needs and operations of the U.S. financial market. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass this off to Vicky, who's going to get us started. Vicky?
Hello, everyone. As Nick mentioned, my name is Vicky Basile, and I am the Alliance Manager for Macola Software. I don't want to take up much of the valuable time that he mentioned, but I do want to do a quick overview of Macola for all of you on the phone. Macola serves primarily manufacturers and distributors. If you are creating or distributing anything, you are likely a good fit for Macola. We typically target the SMB space, which ranges in the 50 to 500 employee level, but we also have customers with up to 10,000 employees, so we can fit in pretty much any space. We have a global footprint, including the US, Canada, Latin America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. We've been in business for over 40 years and have served over 8,000 customers during those years. Our flagship product, Macola 10, is all-inclusive and scalable and allows you to grow into our solution at no additional module cost. We provide strong value with more functionality for less cost. Who uses Macola? This is just a sample of many customers with some logos you may actually recognize. Piggly Wiggly, White Castle, Spick and Span, Simple Green, Bob's Red Mill. I use that product all the time. But we also have many customers whose logos you won't recognize, but they are a very integral part of the supply chain. With all that said, Macola partners with best-in-breed ISVs like LucaNet to provide functionality to complement and enhance your Macola investment. With that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Rob Lawson. As Nick mentioned, he's the Managing Director of LucaNet North America, and he will speak to and demo the LucaNet Financial Consolidation, Advanced Reporting, and Budgeting and Forecasting product that integrates seamlessly with Macola 10 and ES, Macola ES. Rob, take it away.
Thank you, Vicky and Nick. I appreciate the introduction here. As everyone has said before, my name is Robert Lawson. I'm the Managing Director here at LucaNet. Today I will be showing you a little bit about our product, giving you some background into who we are, and allowing you to then obviously see the offering that we have. LucaNet has been paired with Macola. We initially launched our partnership this year, which is obviously the impetus behind this webinar. We noticed that there is a need with the Macola customers to help with some of the advanced reporting requirements and complex consolidation and budgeting needs that they have. So today I'm going to be showing you all of those aspects of our product and how we can directly integrate with Macola. So before I get into that, though, I would like to give you some background on who we are. So LucaNet is an owner-operated company that was established back in 1999. The original founders are still within ownership positions today. They started as financial consultants for large financial firms in Germany working for mid-market and large enterprise companies. What they noticed working for those companies is that there really was no good reporting and consolidation option at the time for these companies to be able to scale and produce their reports other than Excel. And while Excel is a great product, having that as kind of a source system for all of your reporting needs to management and investors ends up being a bit troublesome. So what they did is they actually built a product that was built for financial users to be in control and design these financial statements with direct integrations to their financial information, to their statistical information, giving them the ability to complete all of their reporting needs in a timely process and really become a business partner to the organization. After the development of the product, they launched their software and have experienced some pretty substantial growth over time. So over the past nearly 20 years, we've acquired over 2,000 customers in over 40 countries. We now have 13 different office locations within 10 different countries, obviously one here in Philadelphia. And like I said before, we have established our official partnership with Macola this year, but we have been working with Macola integration since 2015. To give you an idea of our global presence, here is all of our current office locations. As you can see on the left-hand side, we have 3 German locations, which obviously that's where we started. So that was our primary growth market for many years. Now here on the West Coast, so the western side of the world, I should say, we're located in Philadelphia. You can see it up in the top right-hand corner. But we also have exposure to the eastern side of the world, there in China and in Singapore. And then obviously there's a lot of saturation here in Europe as well. I've kind of briefly touched on the challenges that we're looking to solve, and I expect many of you see yourselves with your current reporting processes, is that oftentimes if you are using Excel for your reporting processes, it becomes very difficult to scale your operations. So as you grow, as you have new employees come in, Excel becomes more and more inefficient. So while it is a great tool for analysis and presentation, it's not necessarily the best tool to be your source of truth. So what we have tried to do is provide a solution that has more control, has a little bit more transparency, so if something changes in your structure, it doesn't break the reporting process. Oftentimes Excel is very static and expects your data to be static, and as we all know, that is not necessarily always the case. The other problem that we see is that even if there is other solutions in the market, oftentimes they take around 6 months to a year to complete their implementation process. Generally, if you're looking for a system like ours, your financial resources are already constrained. So asking you to take 6 months to upgrade to a year of your time is never really the best option. So the LucaNet solution, again, really does work and strive to provide transparency and flexibility for your results. At the same time, we need to be able to handle complex financial consolidation and integrate directly with not only your financial data, but your statistical information. You can see we also provide options for automatic cash flow generation and forecasting, all of which you will see today. The average implementation time for a LucaNet product can be anywhere between 5 to 25 days, depending on the complexity of the organization, which means that if you do decide to upgrade, within months, you can actually see the returns of that investment without having to spend a tremendous amount of sweat equity in upgrading. Here you can see a list of our customers. I'm representing this to show you that we are an industry agnostic business. We do have some verticals where we tend to do very well in, however, which again I think works to perfectly pair us with Macola as we grow substantially in Germany working with manufacturing industry, within the manufacturing industry. So you can actually see here that, say, Ipsen, for instance, is a manufacturing company. We also have IFS Coating, which is an adhesive manufacturer that's actually also a Macola customer. But you can also see at the top of River of Goods here, which is an online retailer and manufacturer, again, a Macola customer, that doesn't necessarily fit into that vertical. We also have a lot of other industries here. You can see Rocket Internet, which is a private equity firm, Lifestyle, which is a concert management company. Given that, I now want to talk a little bit to the IT people in the room, but also give you some understanding to the financial people on what we can integrate into our system. So this slide is our software architecture. Basically, what this is representing is to show you that we can take information from nearly any source system, whether it's a SQL connection or XMLA or analysis services. We can take the data from an ERP or a flat file, import it into our data warehouse, which you see here in the middle layer. We translate it all into information that LucaNet then understands, and then aggregate and import that into our OLAP server. The OLAP server allows for real-time analysis of that information dependent on whatever dimension you'd like to slice and dice the view that you're looking at. We can then also integrate with other third-party integrations, BI, for instance, obviously Excel, using certain connections, whether that's XMLA or RDBMS. So given that information, who we are and what we're trying to solve, I think the next best step here is really to show you what our product can do. But before I get there, I think this might be a good time to pause, turn it back over to Nick to ask the first poll question of the day.
Sure, thanks, Rob. And actually, we did want to get your participation in today's webinar. And I actually just launched a poll here. What are the primary reasons you are actively searching for a consolidation or advanced financial reporting tool? So here are the results for what are the primary reasons you're actively searching for a consolidation or advanced financial reporting tool. The leader here is 43% financial consolidation, and that's followed up by advanced reporting, and then budgeting and forecasting, and then automated cash flow generation way in the back. So Rob, Vicky, actually wanted to get your feedback and analysis on the poll here.
Yeah, from my standpoint, that's actually quite surprising. Oftentimes I find one of the biggest issues in the market is the cash flow generation. It's exciting to see that consolidation really is the pain point, and that's something that that's our bread and butter. That's where we, designed and launched. We work in some of the most complex, consolidation requirement markets in the world. So it's actually very cool to see that that's really the needs of this market, and I'm excited to show you that. Obviously, I will touch on all of the capabilities of LucaNet today, but it is very cool to see that that really is the need here.
Great. Great.
Yeah, from a customer perspective, having been a customer for 10 years of Macola, I'm not a bit surprised by the financial consolidation being the top need. That is one of the primary drivers of partnering with LucaNet as well. So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we definitely, the budgeting and forecasting, when customers see that, they're going to see that it's quite easy to use LucaNet to do that. And advanced reporting, being able to get report quality, like audit quality reports out of LucaNet might change those poll numbers slightly, but financial consolidation doesn't surprise me at all.
Good. Excellent analysis, Rob and Vicky, and also I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in this. We may do another one of these in a little bit, but Rob, with that said, I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thanks, Nick. So the first thing I want to show you here is obviously the login screen for our product. What this does is allows users to obviously create their unique username. They can be integrated with an Active Directory on your network. And what this allows for is a varying set of permissions for all the users within your network. Oftentimes, we work with organizations that have multiple locations, multiple companies, but they want to have each of those companies have access to the financial data. What that means is they will all have access to the system, but they want to make sure that they can't see maybe the group data or the information from China. They should simply only be allowed to see their local entities information. So these user names obviously have the ability to restrict access based on company, based on cost center, based on what statistical information they can see. Really does provide a lot of granularity for the finance administrator of the product. The other cool thing about this is that LucaNet is administered by a financial user. I think I mentioned briefly before that we really didn't want to create an IT-intensive product. So even down to the usernames, they're all managed by a financial user. So once we log in, you can see my login screen, which is completely customizable to the individual. Here I obviously have LucaNet, but typically we would replace this with your company logo. We have some very quick links within the system to be able to show you certain reports that you have built up, certain management cockpits, etc. Again, this is completely customizable to the user. Jumping into the actual product here, I first want to show you one of the nice-to-haves within LucaNet, and that is our workflow capabilities. Obviously, you're here to see, like we said before, the consolidation and the reporting functions of LucaNet. However, in order to have a proper consolidation, you need to have controls around your process and your procedures. So what LucaNet allows for is this workflow capability. Within this workflow capability, I have the ability to link to an email server, which can then send out notifications to the individual users or supervisors that are linked to a certain task. Here you can see that the user that is actually meant to perform this task is within the holding industry, the holding company, and then the supervisor is the administrator of the system. On the right-hand side, you can actually see how the workflow is done. There is the ability to import images here, so you can actually then clearly direct an individual on how to perform this task. This is great for when it comes to transferring over responsibilities from one person to another. You can also obviously change the timeline on these to fit your current financial calendar very easily. At the same time, I can add comments to the task that I'm performing and incorporate supporting documentation from any file. Now, if I go to the comment section, I can actually see the comment I wrote and the support documentation. Now again, I think this is a nice to have with our product. This is not the primary reason for it, but it does help you control the ability to perform your financial close. The other thing that you need to be made aware of before we jump into the consolidation is how we view the information and how we present it in LucaNet, how we build up your financial statements, how you can do the reporting in LucaNet, and then we'll talk about how we get to that financial consolidation. So if you remember before, I said that right now the data is actually in its OLAP cube, in this OLAP cube. What that allows for is the ability to do some very quick slicing and dicing, all using in-memory processing. So what this does is I can actually change any of the parameters of what I'm trying to view very, very quickly. So you just saw I went from a yearly view to a monthly view. Now I'm actually in the consolidated company view. And that was all done with a few clicks of the mouse. Going back to the monthly view for the company, we can also take a look at the structure that we've set up here. This P&L structure is completely unique to each individual company that we want to work with. And typically what we'll see is that we have a group structure that we build, and then we can also build derived structures from this so that you have not only your group accounting, but you have your local accounting. So if we take a look here, we can see this P&L is structured a bit differently, but in the end, the retained earnings is the exact same as the retained earnings here. I can not only have these high-level positions, but I can also have some sub-positions as well to give you a bit more granularity into what your P&L looks like. The key here is I'm also not losing my local account structure. So I can import my local account structure into this group structure and still have the view that the local subsidiaries want to see. I mentioned before that this is all managed by the financial department. So let's say we needed to get some more granularity into what our G&A expense is. I can open that up and see, well, there's actually 2 travel accounts in here, which to me would make sense if they were broken out in their own position. With many other systems, you would actually then have to call the IT department, let them know that you need to make a change to the structure, and wait for that ticket to then be resolved. With LucaNet, as the administrator of your own product, you can make that change directly in the system. So I'm adding a new position. I will then take those accounts. I can cut them out and paste them. Very similar to typical Windows functionality, I also have some shortcuts. I could have Control-C, Control-X, and Control-V. Not only can I change the structure, but I can do some graphical representations of the information within it. So I click that graph and I can see I'm actually now comparing marketing and travel expense. And as I go through here, I can see there's a large jump in marketing expense for October. Maybe I want to take a look at what that may be. We can close this. I double-click into the number, and now I'm actually drilling down into the individual postings that make up this information. I can then take a look at, say, some of the largest amounts, and I can see the actual posting that was made, the posting text associated, both sides of the transaction, almost all the way down, if you have a document management system, to the supporting invoice. Now this is very good for viewing information, but obviously you can only view the information if we can get it into the system. One of the value adds to the partnership that we have with Macola is that it's very easy for us to integrate directly with Macola and pull that information into LucaNet. So if we take a look here, you can see October 14 data is not populated. Using the Macola interface that we've built, I can go to my importing section, go to the correct folder, and create a new data import. I create a relevant name for this import. I select the appropriate source system, the mapping table, and now I have to select which periods I'm importing. And I hit start. So the beauty of this partnership that we have is not only do we have a connector now, but as Macola changes, as they upgrade their product, we will have a connector for those products as well, with a seamless upgrade for your integration so that there is no lag in what Macola produces and what LucaNet can then pull. You see here we have some missing assignments. So what that means, we have 2 new accounts that occurred in the Macola system that now need to be assigned to the relative P&L position. So this is a very easy process within LucaNet once it's initially completed. I then see that these are the 2 new accounts. I select the location within the P&L I wish this account to be created, and I can see here it's now been created. With fuel costs, for instance, let's say it's a slightly different description than the motor vehicle. So maybe one organization calls it motor vehicle costs, the other one calls it fuel costs, and you don't want to see both accounts. You'd like to only see one. I can actually map that account directly within motor vehicle costs. I also have an accounting area or a cost center that I still need to map. So you can see here underneath of holding, we have some cost centers structure that we've built out. This is a production cost center. I can see here that this name is a bit different than the naming convention within LucaNet. So even from this mapping table, I can even then change the name and the order. Now you see I no longer have missing assignments. I can click Save now. And what this process is doing is making sure that the posting that we've created is a balanced posting. And we go back into the P&L structure, and we can see the data has been created. Now, once the data is into the system, as a controller, you then have the ability to make some top-side adjustments as you see fit. So in this instance, I'm going to create a depreciation adjustment. I'm going to change the adjustment level here. And let's say we want to change it to 20,000. Now you heard me harp on the fact that LucaNet is a financial-based system. If I hit OK here, I'm not allowed to make this posting. And for the finance people in the room, we know why. It's not two-sided. So I must first create a balanced posting in order for this to save. So we'll go into our assets. We'll identify depreciation. We can hit the calculator to give us the balancing posting amount, and OK. The posting is now saved. I can actually separate that here from the raw data that I've imported. So now I have a way to view all the top-side adjustments with, again, just one click of the mouse. All of our ledgers are linked within LucaNet, which allows us to not only ensure that the financial logic of a balanced posting is in place, but as you can see here, this 20,000 is in my balance sheet, and as I flow all the way through to my cash flow, I can see both sides of that posting here in my cash flow. So as my data changes, once my cash flow is built, I will automatically see a generated version of it here in the system. And this works the same way for all of your budgeting and forecasting information. This allows for your budget and forecast to be the exact mirror of your actuals. Okay, so now, as Nick revealed to us in the poll question, it's very important for everyone in this room to see the consolidation capabilities within LucaNet. So I'm going to begin showing you that, and before I actually show you the automatic consolidation capabilities, I think it's important to represent that LucaNet has the ability to maintain multiple currencies. So for those in the room that have organizations that span the globe, obviously you're not using US dollar. And if you want your foreign entities to be able to see their financials and report their data into local currency, LucaNet can handle that. So here I'm showing a quick view of our P&L and the average rates used to convert from local to reporting. But really when it comes to consolidation, the tricky part is in your balance sheet. So we can see here on our balance sheet we're using a slightly different rate, which is the end of period rate. But as I drill down into my equity, each of these positions actually is using a different rate than the assets. This is because of the obvious capital consolidation that had to occur for some of the subsidiaries. So we have the ability to lock the exchange rate at the time of purchase, which is what I have done previously. If I uncheck the box, I can actually bring back in the currency fluctuation, and now you can see that this account matches the closing rate of the assets. Again, with a click of a button, I can break that part back out. You can see now that all my currency variances are in a separate account. I can bring them back down, and you then see that the reporting currency value does not change month over month, which is key when it comes to capital consolidation. The other types of consolidation that we're going to focus on are your AR/AP reconciliation items. We also have capabilities for the revenue and expense, but if I show you this, realize that they are actually done very, very similarly. First, what we do is we have to identify out of the information going into LucaNet which transactions are intercompany. This is done a multitude of ways with Macola. So in your system, if you've identified a customer or a vendor as an intercompany, LucaNet can identify that as it pulls it in and automatically assign it to the corresponding entity. If you don't have that identification, we can then simply take the vendor codes, the customer codes, and create that on our own, or we could simply base it on the account structure that you provide us. What I see here is that within holding, I have $1.4 million of an intercompany transaction with France. So if I drill down into France, I should see the corresponding payable of $1.4 million. And I see that here. Now obviously, if we have the ability to identify this systemically, we should also then have the ability to eliminate it systemically. So with a click of a button, I can create my debt consolidation for September. I hit OK. And I can see here all my intercompany transactions have been paired out. I have immediately identified any differences. So we already looked and we saw that France was perfectly correct. But if we take a look at China, we can see that there's a $20,000 difference. What I can do is then investigate this difference with the individual stakeholders and have it resolved, or realize that maybe it's just currency fluctuations. I'm not that worried about it. So we can just say, let's accept it. So we'll change the threshold for currency, and now you can see that that actually shows up as okay. The difference of that 21,000 will be posted to a difference account. So you do end up with a balance posting in the end. We hit OK, and now you see in my intercompany accounts, it equates to 0. Again, from a revenue expense side, it works the same way. That covers the majority of the topics for consolidation. So before I jump into the budgeting section here, I think it might be another good time to turn the call over to Nick for our remaining poll question. Nick?
Thanks, Rob. So let's go ahead and start this second poll here. I've opened it up. The question is, how often does your company create a full budget or forecast, including P&L, balance sheet, cash flow? Pretty simple here. Is it monthly, quarterly, yearly, or never? So the leader here, yearly, 43%. Not too far behind, though, is monthly. And then quarterly and never are tied for third here. Rob, Vicky, what do you guys think?
Thanks, Vic. From my perspective, I actually, again, I think that's exactly fits into my expectations. A yearly cash flow and balance sheet forecast for many organizations is very complicated and time-consuming. So while a lot of them would like to take a look at the liquidity that they expect to have over the year, it tends to take up too much time to be able to generate that and compare that to their actuals to really provide the value add that they're looking for. For those of the companies that are actually doing it monthly, I imagine that they either have a dedicated resource for this or spending a tremendous amount of time reconciling out the data or maybe not getting the full view of their expected cash flow versus their actual that they would choose to have, as this is generally a very hard thing to do within Excel.
I would agree with what Rob said. Yearly is generally the standard. I would probably, knowing that these are Macola customers, mostly Macola customers, I would probably think they're doing the monthly comparing Macola. They're putting their budgets in Macola perhaps, and then comparing actuals, after posting. So that, and I agree though, that's very time consuming if you don't have a dedicated resource for that, if you're doing it in Excel or some other off-book product. So, but I'm not surprised by the 43% yearly. Never is a little high, but I'm not surprised. That's a little concerning, but I understand. So it's just complicated and it's very hard to do, especially if you don't have a dedicated resource.
Sure. No, and that's this is a good resource today for helping out with this. So everyone, I'm going to close the poll here, and I just want to thank you all again for participating. Makes it much more interesting and valuable for us to know what you're actually thinking as well. So Rob, here, I'll pass it back to you for the last part of your presentation.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nick. I think that poll question really is a great lead-in to the next topic I want to show you, which is the ability to budget and forecast within LucaNet. The key here is that not only are we budgeting and forecasting our P&L, but we then have the ability to import some specified rules to then automatically create our balance sheet and flow back into that cash flow statement that I showed you earlier. So the first way I want to show you how we can do budgeting is directly within LucaNet through the use of our forms. So here I'm showing France. You can see in 2013 in the gray column is our actuals, but in 2014 we have yet to create a revenue forecast. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new form. We'll call it the revenue forecast. We have multiple form types here. We have the default, which is traditionally used for creating a forecast based on historic results. We have a quantity times price, which I think is relatively self-explanatory. And then the subject's a difference figure, which is great for cost of goods sold figures, for instance, where we can say our historic gross margin was 30%. So as my revenue changes, so should my cost of goods sold. We can hit OK here, and we get the inputs for our form. So for this particular demonstration, I'd like to show you a revenue forecast based on historic customer results. Now, this information can be pulled from any system that you choose. If you have your customer sales results within Macola, again, we have direct integration for that. Our integration doesn't just stop at financial data, but we can also pull in some of the statistical information that isn't necessarily seen on a P&L or a balance sheet. We can then decide where it goes, which is the revenue account. And I can begin designing a budget for customer A. So let's say I don't expect much change in customer A. So I manually plugged in 7.5. I could also say for customer B, I expect a 10% adjustment. Simply plug in 10%. And my personal favorite, I could highlight all of the customers and use our forecast wizard. I could create a 15% increase for each. Can extend it to any period I wish. For here, obviously, we're choosing December, and I hit Apply Prognosis. Now, what I've done is I've created a revenue forecast based on my historic customer results, and now I have my revenue for the period. And if I want to look at it on a monthly basis, you can see these top two, which I manually plugged in, are all ratable across the 12 months. The reason the forecast wizard is my favorite is that you can actually now see that the seasonality of the business that was pulled from your source system for those customers is then applied to each month of the forecast. We hit OK, and we get an error. Now, I've already said it 3, maybe 4 times that LucaNet is a financial system. We require a balanced posting. If I were to simply save this, I would not have a balanced posting. So we have the ability then to create a balance sheet based on the P&L results that I am forecasting for. So I go to my accounting rules section, and I have the ability to put the assumptions in here for my payment on those revenues, or my receipt of payment on those revenues. Let's say I expect there to be 50% of my cash immediately. There's another 25% that I expect to receive 1 month later, and the remaining 25% I'll receive 2 months later. And what this means is that 50% of my revenues will immediately go to my cash item. The other 50% will roll into my AR. So I then need to decide, using these rules, which cash account am I going to hit, and which AR account will I be hitting. I now can save this rule, which then allows me to go back to the posting, and now I'm able to save that initial posting I made. If I go into the balance sheet and I look at 2014's budget, I can see that my assets, my AR, and my cash change over time dependent on the revenue number that I've programmed. And you notice that I actually click this button here, immediately showing the changes in my balance sheet. So another key feature with LucaNet is that the balance sheet obviously is a point in time, so it's a carryover of your numbers. But with one click of a button, I can show you the differences in all of those figures month over month, which then, again, allows us to look back, and this is how we would then create our automatic cash flow from that budget. Those rules apply to any organization, any company that you have, any subsidiary that you have. You can make them unique by subsidiary. You can make them standard across the organization. However you choose to do it, LucaNet gives you the capability. You can also do some variance analysis within LucaNet by duplicating this current budget and making some changes. We can do some comparisons here of the information directly within LucaNet as far as the actual information goes, along with the budget information that we've created. So you can see here, if we go back into our P&L, here's the variance between the budget that we just created and the actuals that occurred through that period. You can actually make some changes to this view very easily. I can add a section for comments if I choose. Make those comments maybe on the difference. So now I can make a comment that will say, I didn't forecast. And you can actually then see that comment here. This becomes a great tool for users that are in the system to do some very quick analysis, quick and dirty analysis, put the comments, share with the organization, and make it so that the email traffic, again, is a bit more limited, and the history is always going to be stored. This is a nice segue for me, though, to just jump into the reporting capabilities of LucaNet. So we've done the consolidation. I've shown you how you can do the budgeting, and I've shown you how you can view the information here. The next step for me is that we can not only take the information and view it in LucaNet, but of course, we can design reports or you can design these reports. They're actually designed specifically by the user to generate for their financial management. Generally, what I see with these types of reports is that they are designed to fit into your Q or your K statement that you're making for that period, or just your general board report that you need to create quarterly or monthly. So what we'll do is you can change the period, you can change the company, you can change the way that this looks. This is all Excel type formatting. So you have a financial guy here at LucaNet who built this, so it's not as pretty as maybe some of your marketing team can build. But this, again, is completely customized by you. It also links to the charts and graphs that you need to use for perhaps your PowerPoints. So the live data can be fed into this form and automatically updated. This is the way that we push data from LucaNet into Excel. But like a lot of other systems, we also have the ability to pull data from LucaNet into Excel. With this functionality, you can see the underlying formulas that make up the numbers are part of our Excel integration. So equals LucaNet is a formula that we have added to the Excel functionality. And once we've built this out, I can go to my Excel integration and I can recalculate all my results. And you can see all of the numbers here. And again, this is completely designed by you. So as you need to make changes to these formulas, it's very easy to do. You can then break the links that these formulas have created and send it out to anybody within your organization. With the other methodology that I showed you, they're automatically hard-coded values. We have ways to automate the distribution of those reports to whatever distribution list you see fit. So if you have a board report, you validated the numbers, you can simply run the report, and it'll automatically send it out in Excel or PDF to whatever distribution list you've created. There's a lot of other functionalities here. There was some functionalities as far as getting budgets in via Excel, updating budgets via Excel, producing rolling forecasts. But unfortunately, we only have so much time. So I don't want to make anybody late for any potential meetings after this. So at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to Vicki and Nick for questions and closing remarks.
Thanks, Rob. And we have a few parting thoughts, and I'm going to ask Vicki to take this slide here.
Okay. Thank you, Rob, very much. That was a very informative demo of the product. So just to summarize for everybody, want to just point out that LucaNet integrates with Macola to provide an all-in-one solution, similar to our all-in-one solution. So integrates currently with Macola 10 and Macola ES. LucaNet's advanced financial reporting makes it easier to create budgets and rolling forecasts. So you saw some of that with what Rob presented. A much easier process than what we're accustomed to, and although Excel can be easy, this is much more functional. LucaNet also has an accelerated implementation time, can have an accelerated implementation time. He touched on that very briefly in the beginning of the presentation, but it's anywhere between 5 and 25 days, so that's a very minimal impact on your business operation. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Nick, I suppose, or if Rob, you'd like to make any comments, and actually turn it over to Nick for questions. I see we have some questions in the chat box.
We do, and thanks again, Vicki and Rob, for leading us here. And we do have some questions that were submitted way at the beginning of the webinar. So we'll start with those and kind of work our way through to more recent. Again, everyone, you can submit your own question in the GoToWebinar panel in the questions section. So let's get started here. Okay, first off, I see we have two Macola databases for which we need to consolidate financials and make reporting simple for the finance team without depending on SSRS or Crystal reports. I don't know if it's so much a question or a statement or a need, but maybe I'll let you, Rob, see if you can answer that, or Vicky.
Sure. Yeah, so taking it as a statement, of course, that's something that we would work with. The current customers that we have that are with Macola have upwards of 20 databases that they use to consolidate our companies, all of which have some varying GL structures, varying IC codes, etc. And one of the keys here that you saw through that mapping process, that we have the ability to homogenize the data across all of those databases and create one uniform reporting package. So once the effort is put in to get that mapping done, it is then becomes a very repeatable process on an automatic basis.
Okay, good. I think that answered the question, and if it didn't, please send us another one or a follow-up to that. So here's one. When you enter, and I think maybe we did not cover this. When you enter an adjustment in LucaNet, will it go back to Macola so they match?
Yeah, so I didn't actually cover that, and you can, right? So we do have a two-way integration. But again, it wouldn't happen automatically. You would need to put the adjustments into LucaNet, and then you would have to make those, you'd have to then run the process to get the posting from LucaNet back into Macola.
Okay, okay. So here's another one. Does LucaNet have the option to pull from data sources other than Macola? You know, for example, ADP or Concur?
Yeah, so we do. Obviously, we integrate in a large, or we interact with a large market. So we have over 200 standard connectors that we have built, but we also can then build connectors as needed. Again, using that SQL, XMLA analysis server or services connection types. And then we also utilize an authentication 2 protocol, which allows us to connect to the online type applications. So long answer made a little bit shorter. Yes, we can connect to other HR type systems like ADP, and we've already done so in the past.
Okay. Well, these questions are rolling in as fast as we can answer them here. So here's a few more. Can sales be forecasted at an item level?
If you have the information there, so again, we can forecast at an item level, not a problem. We do need to understand a bit on the volume of that you're looking to do. And then I think there's also a value add to having the actuals of those item sales. So we would then need to be able to retrieve that information. So whether that would be in Macola, of course, we can retrieve it, or any other system, we need to figure out how to retrieve it to give you kind of the baseline of your actuals to your forecast.
Okay, okay. This is interesting. Can you import custom Excel add-in reports?
I'm not sure I fully understand that, but if you mean custom Excel add-in reports from LucaNet, so we design a report using the LucaNet add-in, then you want to make the adjustments to that report in Excel, then of course we can actually push it from that location back into LucaNet. Right? I think that's the question, but I'm a little fuzzy on what you're going for there.
Okay. Let us know if that did answer, or if you might be able to clarify or qualify so we can answer that question a little bit better. Okay, let's go to this one. Does LucaNet integrate with Macola progression?
So the progression interface is not something we have currently, but we are actively working with Macola to get that built and operational. So I think, you know, depending on if it's something you are utilizing, and depending on your turnaround time, it's something that we will have in place in relatively short order.
Okay. Next one, are elimination entries typically booked as top-side entries, or do most users create an elimination company in Macola?
So the elimination company is actually created within LucaNet. So then at that point, those entries, I think in the way you're stating it, would almost look like top sides because they wouldn't be in Macola, they would be in LucaNet. But as I said before, if you want to push the data back into Macola, you'd obviously have to have an entity for it to go to. So you could put that there. But the idea here is that the consolidation entries and then reporting would then be run out of LucaNet.
Okay. And then maybe a last question here, and if you have other questions, you can add them on the survey at the end here, or you can email them to us as well. Does LucaNet allow multiple users to enter data at the same time, or just a single admin?
So any user that you give permission to can enter data. There's some caveats, to be fair, on how many users can enter data at the same time. So if you want to enter data for the same company using the same mapping tables at the same time, that there actually is a little bit of restriction there because you need to be able to update the table on one side and you don't want to impact what's happening on the other. But let's say you need to import information to 3 or 4 different companies at the exact same time through 3 or 4 different users. That's absolutely possible.
Okay. Well, hopefully that answered the question. And again, if you have questions, feel free to forward them to us. I left the contact us screen or slide up so that you can reach out to Vicky or Rob. Also, I just want to thank everyone again for attending today's webinar. If you have any other questions, feel free to send them to Vicky or Rob or at Mikola Software at ecisolutions.com. Also, once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on this webinar, and we'd greatly appreciate it if you would share your feedback with us. And just a reminder, we'll be sending a link and an email tomorrow to view the on-demand version of today's webinar. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.